You're listening to Journalists on Journalism, a weekly podcast brought to you by Stanford's graduate program in journalism. For more information and upcoming speakers, visit journalism.stanford.edu.
I spent my entire career, nearly 40 years, as a community journalist. And I started at the Tampa Tribune, and I worked for the St. Petersburg Times, and then I moved on to the Clearwater Sun, the Tallahassee Democrat, and finally the Concord Monitor. At the time I made each of those moves, it was a move to a smaller newspaper. This is not the recommended career path. All you can do is learn from the hard lessons of your life. A couple of years later, an even bigger story broke in Clearwater. L. Ron Hubbard came to town surreptitiously, and he and the other leaders of Scientology, the Church of Scientology, set up a dummy corporation and bought the biggest bank in town, an abandoned building, and the biggest hotel in town. I learned from this experience that I loved being the bearer of news to a community that cared. The Scientologist takeover kept us hopping, and I thrived on the idea of our readers picking up the paper every afternoon and devouring the latest news about it. In the age of the internet, no matter how good the Monitor was or is, it is suffering the same decline as other newspapers. In the early 2000s, I had a newsroom of 45 full-time equivalents, including 15 city-side reporters. My successor has 8 reporters at this time, and a third of the staff, or more, is now gone. First, the macro point is that even though newspapers need to continue to act as though they are the community's glue, that idea, in my view, is dying rapidly. In short, what I'm saying, I guess, is that the weakening of community journalism is a real blow to our democracy. But my advice to you is to get a job as a reporter on a small daily newspaper if you can. You will learn great values that will serve you no matter what you go on to do. I don't kid myself that the clock will be turned back to the days when daily newspapers were the hearts of their communities. But I know from the many fine Concord Monitor journalists who now hold jobs elsewhere that the values they learned in Concord were central to their later success. We were very aggressive in selling the paper, and there really has been a change in civic engagement because of the decline in newspaper circulation. I applaud all efforts to replace community journalism on any platform. I think it really needs to happen. But I also worry a great deal about whether or not where the economic part of that's going to come in, and I also worry about whether people will gather around any kind of medium the way they did around a small community newspaper. I mean, I really think that what needs to happen for any kind of community journalism to succeed in the future is to figure out what the paywall for the websites and just make the economics work again. I don't know how that's going to happen, but I really think that that's what needs to happen. It's the world's greatest book club is what it is. It's a table, it's kind of this length, but it's a big round table in the World Room at Columbia. And you just sit around this table and take the categories one at a time and make the decisions, talk about them for an hour or so each, and make the decisions. 2-day process. You know, our staff was kind of divided between a group of young reporters who turned over every 2 to 3 to 4 years. It tended to be a little longer than most small papers because we would lose them right after the New Hampshire primary, and the new ones would stay for the next New Hampshire primary, so we'd have kind of a 4-year cycle instead of a 2 or 3 year cycle. One of the things that's happened with the primary is that it's now covered from beginning to end by the national media. It used to be that the national media kind of showed up at the end, and that's gotten earlier and earlier and earlier. So you have to, as an editor and as a reporter covering politics on that level, you have to be innovative, and you have to be imaginative, and you have to really figure out what stories you're going to do to help voters make good decisions come election day. But we had these huge stories that we covered all the way through. We did a lot of enterprise work, a ton of enterprise work. I got to be a Neiman Fellow. I got to be on the Pulitzer Board. I had plenty of things that I could do, and other people on my staff have had those kinds of opportunities as well, and won major awards and those kinds of things. So if you try to create an atmosphere of excellence at your paper, it almost doesn't matter what size it is.
You've been listening to Journalists on Journalism. Find more speakers at journalism.stanford.edu.